Thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I look forward to speaking with everyone today and sharing a little bit about my story. My name is Ariel Young. I am the chief paper pusher at Copper and Brass Paper Goods. So, at Copper and Brass, my goal is always to create purposeful stationery. I create whimsical paper goods and also functional lifestyle pieces. And all of our pieces aim to celebrate Black woman joy. I've noticed that a lot of the diversity that I've seen, it seems very gloomy, doesn't seem very happy. It seems sometimes attached to maybe some trauma or something like that, very muted colors. And I just want to celebrate all those wonderful, happy moments. The purpose of Copper and Brass is just to celebrate those joyful moments.
I love it. Yes. What is it that you found to be like your most happiest moment when you started Copper and Brass, and like just some of the indicators that, okay, I'm living out my purpose, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And when did you realize that, okay, I have to keep going? Because I know being a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, it can be hard just to
Right.
start something, do something, especially when there's so many other businesses out there as far as stationery where you have big corporate companies that could just say, okay, we don't have enough diversity. Let's just throw in and mix in like some Black girls here, or just
Right.
have some kind of variety. So, how did you know that, okay, it's my calling? This is what I'm supposed to be doing?
When we originally started Copper and Brass, I always say we, but it's me. It's me. I'm solo out here. So when I started Copper and Brass, I initially started with a Black Santa. And with that Black Santa, I received like just rave reviews from everyone. And people were like, this is so necessary. We need this. We need to see him. We need to see Black characters that are imaginative and, in these fantasy realms. And makes not only the kids feel good or the kid within us, but also adults give us something to aspire to and just be able to take us to these fantastic places in our minds and our hearts and our spirits. And like I said, I just don't feel like we have enough of these opportunities to highlight the positivity. And along this journey, I've had not only these major, publications and also national television shows and things like that, but most often, I see a lot of young Black kids and teenagers, the HBCU crowd. They seem to flock to my products because they recognize themselves in maybe a notebook or in a compact mirror, but there's always something they can relate to, or, the boss chick, somebody who's working hard. So we're not just painting this one narrative that, we're resilient necessarily. We don't need to be resilient. We don't need to bounce back from everything. We can live a happy and joyous life just like anyone else. And so I'm here just to capture those moments. If you look behind me, my office is flocked in all copper and brass things, all the things. You see ballet, you see the boss chick up top, pre-millionaire. So it's almost like affirmations in every product. Even if the words aren't there, the product is inspiring, it's motivating, it's trying to get you to believe you can be these things. And you can live out these wonderful goals and dreams.
And that right there, where you said manifesting, I truly
Mhm.
do believe in that. And I love how you have notebooks, and it's like you've incorporated and moved on from, like you mentioned before, when you got started. A little bit, and I know a little bit more than some of the listeners do about your start, but you started out with paper goods as far as wrapping paper, and now you've turned over into you have the notebooks, and you have the
Right.
journals, and you have other types of materials. So how do you develop or know what kind of placements or materials to put a lot of your designs on? Or how do you get that vision to actually say, okay, we want to go in this direction next?
Well, my goal for Copper and Brass is for Copper and Brass to become a lifestyle brand. So one day I would love to have pillows. I would love to have decorative items for the home. So right now we just branched out and we're producing our first tumbler. So I'm very aware when I am in big box stores because I visit them like everyone else. And so I'm seeing what's popular. But I also have a massive, like 12,000 people on my email list. So I email and I ask questions. And my customers, I call them my community, everyone knows me as Ariel, they'll say, "Well, why aren't you making tumblers? Why aren't you making mouse pads?" And so we recently just added on mouse pads because, like I said, the purpose is to spread a little bit of joy, sprinkle it everywhere we go. So if I can put a mouse pad on my desk, even if I'm in this big executive office and everything's black and wooden, but if I can put a cute mouse pad on my desk with some black girl joy on it, why not?
Right. And now I know that you mentioned your target audience being a lot of HBCUs or college grads, and they're in the workplace. Like you said, they need a mouse pad, they need a tumbler, they need something to show off a little bit more about their personality, representation, because when you go in the big box stores, like you said, they could see other people on the covers, but they don't see necessarily themselves. But is
Mhm.
it just only exclusive to that, or do you feel like everyone needs that diversity and variety too? So it's not just limited only to someone from like a HBCU.
We extend to the whole community. I even believe as though other races can see themselves in our products. I feel like for so many years we saw ourselves in their products. So why not envision yourself in our world, in our culture? It's about diversity. We live in a diverse world. I mean, it's not just exclusively black, it's not exclusively white. So the purpose is spreading the joy. And though I say black woman joy and everything that we do, just to find that joy, no matter what that joy is for you. I even feel as though, a brother, a dad, or somebody could find themselves or something for their sisters, their wives, a female in their life, just to bring out that happy moment because we all need a little bit more happiness, especially right now. So much is going on in this world. It seems like we're living in a state of PTSD always,
Right.
always in recovery mode. So it's like, why not add in something that makes you smile, even if it's just for 5 seconds and you move on? We need that time. We need to give ourselves some grace, some mercy. And yeah, I just want to stand, in the gap and provide those happy moments for people.
So, what would be your dream partnership? Because I know you talked about expanding into tumblers and being a lifestyle brand, but I know that you've been, which is impressive just from my
Mhm.
marketing background, hearing you say stuff like, okay, I'm doing this market research, which is pretty much like everything you're doing is like marketing. You're studying your audience, you're talking to your community, you're building a group of following, you're finding customers on social media, you're utilizing your email list. So,
Right.
how do you feel like that's going to scale you or get you to the next level with a dream partnership? Or is there someone that, if you could build like your dream team, you can include celebrities or whoever you
Right.
find that inspires you or motivates you? I threw that in there. I know it's a little bit,
Right.
to think
That's a
about
good question.
because it,
That's
yeah.
a good question. It makes me think because I've always had this idea of something that I would like to do. If you're familiar with the Gilmore Girls, I love the Gilmore Girls. I would love to have them from a very small town. We have one traffic light in the entire county where I'm from. I would love to have like a small cottage that I would convert into a small store. You could come in, get a cup of coffee, sit down, talk to people, very community based, and copper and brass products throughout the store. So not necessarily, I guess, a partnership with like, Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, anything like that. That would be good too. But my idea of success, I believe, is totally different from other people's. I would love to remain a solopreneur. I do believe in collaboration. I would like to have help during the holiday seasons, but I would like to work out of my home primarily because my home brings me joy. And I would like for my business to always remain where I can manage it and work hand in hand with any staff that I have, even if it was like part time staff, maybe one person to help with like packing orders and things like that in this small cottage, but nothing that would take me on business trips every month. That's not something that appeals to me.
I see. And that's unique and different from what I hear from a lot of people. They're like, okay, we want to like sell off a percentage, or, they're thinking about, okay, I want to collaborate with this brand. And even if they want to buy me out, so we can rest assured that you're not going to allow
Mhm.
any other owners in. You're going to completely continue to own it, run it. So that's admirable there. And that takes a lot of strength and courage to like you said, want to continue to be a solopreneur, because some people, they start out and then they want to, join forces like you mentioned. But what is it that keeps you motivated and going to be able to have that strength to be like, okay, I'm going to consistently continue to make these products and not give up or not get tired of it? Like, how do you stay zoned in?
I think what keeps me motivated is, for one, my son. He sees what I'm doing, and though he's a young male and not a female, which is my target audience and everything, he's told me on several occasions that he's proud of me. And I feel like doing the work and him seeing me doing the work keeps me motivated. And on top of that, I really, really have a supportive community of customers. My customers send me messages. I get messages at least, I would say 3 or 4 times a day from somebody saying, I received this in the mail from somebody, or I gave this to somebody and they loved it. It makes me feel so good to see myself represented. And when I was a little girl, I didn't see myself represented in stationery. I mean, ever, not in stationery. Lisa Frank was big when I was a little girl. So that's probably why I do the bright, big colors. But those are all animals. But as far as like stationery, you would see Barbie on stationery, but Barbie was never black. And so I'm creating what I needed as a young girl. And even as a teenager, as a HBCU student, and as a school psychologist now, these are products that I need. I use them. I have kids ask me questions when I'm testing or doing an evaluation with them, or parents, even when we're having psychological evaluation meetings. And so I'm just creating something for the girl that I was and the girl that I am now.
Yeah, your inner child is important. I think that's something that a lot of us, as we age and get older, that we don't realize that that's what fuels us, and that's what gives us that inspiration and happiness and
Right,
joy, like you mentioned. And I know you're big on studying a lot of the trends. We didn't really get to this part about your psychology background and how
right.
you are in the schools and how that does help you to know girls that
Mhm.
need that representation, as you mentioned. And I know just from doing a lot of studies myself, just because marketing and psychology goes hand in hand. And I've
Mhm.
been in with some organizations, a lot of grassroots, where we talk about race as well as when you have, okay, like back in, I'm trying to think of the year Obama ran for president, where that was so big just because so many people never thought they could see a black
Right.
president. And just by having Barack Obama as the president, that inspired so many people that before never would have thought it was possible.
Mhm.
And so it just shows how inspirational copper and brass is, just to have stationery. Some people probably would have never thought that they could see that either.
Right.
And sometimes too, when you're a minority,
Mhm.
and from a kid's reference, you're able to see or talk about young girls, and you get to see firsthand their experiences, which once you get into the real world, not to say that there's not black communities that you can get involved with, but sometimes your approach with other races where you're the minority, and
Right.
psychologically when you're the minority, you're not necessarily seeing yourself as the best, or the person that wins prom king, or the person that gets those awards, or is seen as
Mhm.
valedictorian. So sometimes that's validation when you are not
Exactly.
necessarily the minority, but you're able to be around other people that look like you, not from a separation standpoint, but an inclusive standpoint of
Right.
creating that inclusive environment. So do you see from your students like things that they've told you, or do they get to see some of the things that you've worked on or done?
When I'm testing students, I pull out a notepad that may have a black woman on it doing something, black excellence, because that's what I want our students to see. Even me being in the school system, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I am a school psychologist. So I have just about as much training as a clinical psychologist. So just even hearing psychologists in some form, that is black excellence to a lot of these students. And since I'm in these schools that are primarily African American, all of the teachers, most of the teachers are black, the principals are black. So in my mind, that's black excellence. You see this black woman here meeting with you, trying to figure out what's going on with you socially, emotionally, academically. So someone who's also pouring into you. She's writing on her notepad. She's taking notes that shows Black excellence. So it's all about the mind frame, the mindset, putting it out there that you can do anything. You see us doing these things, and you just have to put forth the effort. Yes, there is, a lot of systemic barriers to everything, racial issues, gender issues, but we can keep going and we can knock down some of those hurdles. And it's possible because you see those examples of Black excellence. So definitely, I'm seeing these things. I even had a student one day tell me that, like I said, I'm from a very rural area. And she told me, and she really believed this. She said only white people had two-story houses. And mind you, she's never been outside of her community. So she has no idea. And so I was like, no, that's not true. So let me show you. So I pulled out my phone and we started looking at different things because what you don't see, you don't realize it's possible. Going back to the Barack Obama thing, that changed the trajectory of so many young Black men, Black women, seeing that it was possible. We can do amazing things when we're not given the opportunity, but take hold of the opportunity, I would say. Um, like I said, there are a lot of barriers to those things, but we can do any and all things.
Right. And I'm, again, just seeing that. And like you said, like there's so much encouragement in those products to where I'm just
Mhm.
excited for this to be a number one gift list, like just for me to just share the word,
Right.
even on wakesetGO, because it is all about charging up and motivating others, regardless of what they look like, but to just see that representation and how it can help. We could think something so simple because at the same time, there's so many things that we're facing with news, with things in the media where
Mhm.
it makes it seem like it's a hurdle and like almost like a negative to actually side or promote Black excellence. It's almost like no, nobody needs to see that. It's almost like you have to show the poverty or show the negative,
Right.
show the violence, show what's hindering instead of showing, okay, these people are educated. These people are, doing more than just sports or music. It's like, look at these
Exactly.
talents. Look at, like you said, ballerina, like having someone in the arts and just seeing themselves in that to just show what's possible outside of your environment, which is important just to see that there's no limits either. So I'm
Right.
excited to see about the future. So when you're not working with students and when you're not working on copper and brass, what is it that you're doing as far as staying mentally sane just to continue to have that business mindset and that you need to be creative?
For me, when I need to, just stay in my creative moments and everything, I realize when I need breaks. I'm big on self-care. I'll take a moment, I'll take a week to myself. Like next week is spring break for my son. I don't plan on doing a lot with copper and brass. Um, and I think we all, we work enough in our day-to-day lives, work as moms, we work, in and out of the home. And I think knowing when it's time to rest, because rest is good for us. I want to be well rested. That keeps me creative because I think if I didn't rest, I would burn out really easily. So I know when I've had my limit and it's time for me to take a break.
That's a good tip because I feel like so many entrepreneurs, it's like you have to like keep working. If you're not up late, if you're
Mhm.
not grinding, if you're not, doing, packaging or doing or working on something, it's like you're not going to be successful, but you can contribute your success to taking those breaks
Mhm.
and getting rest, which
I
is a word
I
right there.
worked and
Yeah.
did it, the hustle culture. I did that for like the first 3 years. I didn't take a penny out of copper and brass, and I just, threw everything back into it. But I'm beyond that now. This is the fifth year. And I know that's not good for me. That's not good for my body. It's not good for my family. I need my family. My family is most important to me. And so I'm going to prioritize myself and my family, then copper and brass.
So how did you come up with the name Copper and Brass? Like what was the meaning behind it?
Okay, so copper and brass, the name came from my interpretation of African American skin or black skin. A lot of our undertones are very coppery, very brassy looking. And so I was like, why not copper and brass? And then
That's so
also,
unique.
and I know we talk about, and I'd say I don't like to focus on resiliency, but if you think about those metals, once they start to tarnish and everything, you can polish them up real nice and they look really pretty again. Copper and brass. So it just kind of made sense to me.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges or things you had to get over, just financially or mentally, just to get started with copper and brass? Like, did you already have some savings put up, or what was it that you find was the biggest hurdle to get through to just know that, okay, I'm actually going to do this for you to be in your fifth year of business?
I think one of the biggest hurdles was telling people. I remember when I was working, I told the secretary for my office what I was getting ready to do. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to start designing wrapping paper." And she gave me this look like that was the dumbest thing ever. And so I had to get to a point where I didn't share my idea with people who would not believe in me. I kept it between me and my family. And I also had to get to the point where I just pushed through no matter what people thought about me. I started Copper and Brass with, I think it was $1,600. It wasn't a lot of money. And that was the website. I designed the website by myself, but hosting the website, I did go ahead and buy a domain and things like that. And I bought $800 in paper. And I think I bought like maybe $400 in gift bags. I mean, that budget was tight. And, so I didn't start with this whole, huge bank of money or anything like that. But what I did do was before I launched Copper and Brass, I started teasing people, like my friends on Facebook, because at that time I wasn't even on Instagram. And I was telling people, I'm about to do something. A special announcement is coming Saturday. And so people were like, "Are you pregnant or what?" And I'm like, "You have to wait and see." So by that time I launched on a Saturday. People were into it. And I made, I think, $1,200 on my first day.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's like you're birthing something, but it's like you're birthing your baby, your business, and
Right,
something that you're
right.
developing. Yeah,
Never
so
thought about that, but yeah, perfect. Yeah.
yeah, and the fact that you made $1,200 your first day and you had $1,600 to start with, so that's when you were like, "Okay, I'm
Uh-huh.
making sales. This is something that I need to stick to." So
Right,
everybody that was doubting you and saying, "Wrapping paper, why are you doing that?" And then
right.
you're like, "Okay, no idea is stupid," pretty much. If
Mhm.
you can think it that there's a market for it, there's a target for it. And I like the fact of whenever someone is trying to start a business, everyone's always thinking about, okay, the market is already full. Like, how are
Mhm.
you going to start something when it's already so many people doing the same thing? But to your effect, that there is always a need to satisfy because what you're bringing to the table is different than somebody else's, and your
Right,
creativity and your mix is going to be different as well. So, no matter
right.
if it's someone saying, "Oh, don't do that," or "Oh, it's not going to be successful," I think you're a true testimony of what you can do when you put it out there. And so, would you say that starting out, sharing to your friends and family help? And then, how have you gotten to get or connect with people that you probably don't even know, like their name, and seeing sales coming in from all over? Like, how does that feel? Or how did you, know that okay, I got here. Like, I'm not local anymore.
Right. When I was doing the wrapping paper, so that's a seasonal thing. So after that I was like, "Oh, I made good money." From October
Hmm.
to Christmas, I want to keep doing this. And so I introduced the greeting cards. My first greeting card was a Valentine's greeting card, and Essence picked it up. But the whole time, I think what really worked in my favor was I was not worried about Instagram numbers or anything. I was posting every day. It wasn't the best content. I was taking pictures on my phone. I still take pictures on my phone, but I posted what made me happy and what was pretty to me. And I did not care who saw it or who, I just put it out there and somebody recognized it. And, the first Valentine card made Essence. And after that, things just kind of they kept growing. And then I also during that time I did a lot of vendor events. And I'm a very talkative person. I don't meet a stranger. And so I was at an event, my husband and I, and we were talking to this guy and he just stayed over there a while. We kept talking, And then about 3 or 4 days later, he shared my products. And I believe he was Beyonce's PR rep or
Nice.
publicist, something like that. And I mean, I got a lot of orders and people just kept following and following. So you never know who you run into, and just be nice to people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that right there alone just sets you in the beehive. I could see Operation with Beyonce's new album that she's about to drop. Like, okay, we need to get
Right.
some copper and brass in a Beyonce collab. So the partnership we can manifest right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's so cool about using the online platforms is that you're able to connect and meet so many people
Mhm.
just not even within your proximity,
Right.
and you never know who is going to come across. And I think staying genuine is a good marketing technique because so many times everyone's trying to be perfect or get the right aesthetic that you sometimes miss out on the product. And that's the main thing that people are wanting to see. They're wanting to get that feel. And I think that just staying true to yourself and being yourself and people liking who's behind the brand and wanting to work with you has gotten you into, I mean, Essence and
Mhm.
who knows who's next in the future. So what was the most like exciting like syndication or national placement that you were in that made you just feel like, okay, like this is really major? Or
I think the first thing, that happened was the Today Show appearance.
mhm.
I stayed home from work that day, because I knew it was coming on. They just said it would be in the 9 o'clock hour, and that was huge. I mean, my phone was blowing up. By the time the show went off, I think I had 1,500 emails,
Oh
and I
wow.
had about 20 stores emailing me. Like, it was magical. It really was. It was huge, and I recorded it, and my son watched it, and he said, "Mama, I'm proud of you." And when he
Oh
said that, it made me cry. I've never been more um, proud of myself when he said that. And a lot of times I don't say I'm proud of myself, but I was proud of myself then,
yeah,
especially hearing him saying that.
it's good to definitely take a pause with everything happening. I know it happened to you, you know, so fast, to just take a
Right,
pause and be like, you know what, like I
right.
am really, you
I
know,
did it.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you did it. And like I said, you're just such an inspiration because I saw you online. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to get you on Wake Set Go because I feel like you're a CEO, entrepreneur that is just the epitome of like what it takes to just pull yourself up, start
Mhm.
your business, put it out there, and then just collaborate and work and then just continue to grow and show that consistency. And so I know you mentioned about stores hitting you up. So which stores have you like partnered with and been placed in? And is there any other, you know, opportunities that you feel like is next? Like what's other than just some of the pillows and other products, what do you feel like is the next thing for copper and brass that people can look for you or check out next?
Right. We've been in Macy's, we've been in TJ Maxx, we've been in Home Goods, and also I think TJ Maxx Home Goods has a storefront in Canada and across seas called Winners, and we've been in those stores as well. In the future, I would love to possibly be in Barnes and Noble.
I could
That
see
would
that.
that would be wonderful to me. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be a big goal. Like,
That makes a lot of sense just with the
right.
stationary part and just the representation part. So another thing that I wanted to, you know, get at was we didn't hit on like the COVID times, like how your sales were in COVID versus now and how COVID had helped you and what's the difference you're seeing as far as how people are relating to Black owned businesses when it comes to just after COVID time.
Okay, so before COVID, I will say Copper and Brass has been very successful. Like, I don't share numbers and things like that, but during COVID, I would say our revenue increased. I would say it increased 500%, really. And I mean, it was like it was doubling every week. It was wonderful time. I would say right now I can see a difference in the consumers. I think during COVID, everybody was home and everybody was, I want a notebook. I want to start something new. So a lot of people were starting their own businesses. And when you're starting a new business, you want to write everything down. And so
Right.
I think a lot of women were inspired by the brand. I think a lot of women continue to be inspired by the brand, but I definitely have seen a difference. I think with the climate and everything going on with DEI and pulling back on DEI, affirmative action, all of those things, I do feel as though a lot of those companies and places that said they were going to support Black entrepreneurs more going forward, I feel like a lot of those initiatives have, been erased. And I also feel as though people just aren't home as much. People aren't purchasing as much. And I think with inflation, people have to watch their bottom line. And so I think when you're watching your bottom line, Copper and Brass sells a lot of products that are like luxuries, like an added thing, not necessarily a necessity, something you need. So I'm very happy for every order I get because I know you are spending your hard-earned money on something that's extra for you, especially right now because
Right.
everything's expensive. Milk is what, $4.
Yeah.
So, I've definitely seen a difference. So we pivoted during COVID. That's when we added on more of the stationery beyond, gift bags, wrapping paper, and greeting cards. So that's when we opened that up. So definitely made a lot of money during that time, made a lot of connections, a lot of people wanting to show that diversity because you have to remember this was the time, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, all of these things were going on. And so race was top of mind in diversity initiatives and things like that. But right now, if you're watching the news, we're trying to do away with a lot of that. I'm not, but a lot of the big companies and corporations are. And
Right.
so I definitely see that.
Yeah. So, how do you feel like your impact and what you're doing in the future is going to try to bring people back to that and seeing the importance of having that diversity? Or are you just kind of staying focused and staying like just, like I
I'm
said,
just
just
staying I'm just staying in my zone because I have never changed. I've always been consistent with what I wanted. I've never ventured away from it. I did meet with actually a buyer from a big box store who tried to get me to
hmm
change some things with my products, and I was not swayed. I know what my mission is. My mission is Black Woman Joy. My mission is to make sure my people feel represented, my culture, to feel celebrated and highlighted. And I'm not venturing away from that. And I felt like I was being asked that question and to do certain things that may not have been asked of other small
hmm
business owners. And so I didn't bend.
Yeah, and that right there is commendable. And
Mhm.
I think that right there is a lesson in itself that other entrepreneurs can learn from. That even when other people are changing, trends are changing, the politics are
Mhm.
getting involved, that you got to remember your why you started. And
Right.
that just because they're thinking that is not important doesn't mean that those younger generations aren't going to need it and need that role model and inspiration either. So I
Exactly.
think that I think that right there is good to keep in mind for anyone
Mhm.
out there that wants to support your products. I know you're big online as far as now, like that's how I saw you on Threads. What's your favorite marketing tool to use to like connect and focus on now since after COVID and people are always gone or out? They're not necessarily just in the
Right.
house anymore. So, what is your favorite way to connect with people now?
I still use social media.
hmm
It's not my favorite, I don't think, but it's the easiest way to connect with people, I think, for me. I do have a huge email list, and I had started a newsletter, but again, I take my breaks, so that's on pause right now. But I have a pretty good opening rate on my emails. I think building that email list is very important because, like, I'm having a huge sale right now, and so I send out an email and I immediately get orders and people, clicking and things like that. And I'm always looking at my analytics on the website. So I think outside of social media, having an email list is very important.
Okay. And I know that emails is something that sometimes people like to say, oh, it's too traditional, or oh, people are on their phones, they're not checking their email. But there's also, you got to think about the marketing strategy, and what may not work for some people work for others. And there's a reason why a lot of people are collecting information like emails. It's power and data, and especially using those emails to be able to run other marketing campaigns, because I know you've probably seen that they're talking about banning TikTok and banning other social media. So, what are you going to do if everything kind of closes down and there's no social media? So, I think that is good to have diversity as far as in what platforms you're on, and not just putting everything into one basket as far as eggs go. So,
Right.
I just want to thank you also for your time today, Ariel. And is there anything you want to share with the audience that you feel like you want them to know about copper and brass, as well as where they can purchase some of your amazing stationery and some of the places that you're at, or where they
Okay.
can find you at?
Well, thank you for having me today. It was a very wonderful conversation. I enjoyed being with you today and sharing some of my backstory and talking to the people. But you can find us at www.copperandbrassand.net. I'm trying to get the .com. I've been trying for 5 years, but I haven't been able to. So copperandbrass.net. And I just want to tell everybody, don't be afraid to jump out there, put yourself out there. Don't worry about who's going to laugh or think it's a crazy idea. Don't be afraid of failing forward, despite the setbacks, despite whatever barriers may come your way. Keep going. If you have a goal, you'll eventually get there. Just keep, trudging at it and you'll get it. But again, thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you again, Ariel. Stay tuned for next time on Wake Set Go.